Hello everyone, welcome to the webcast. Today's webcast is about a rather unusual topic for these events. It's about musculoskeletal modeling of insects. Before we give the presenter role to the presenters of today, which is Sina David from German Sports University in Cologne and Alexander Blanke from Hull University in the UK. My role is to introduce anybody very briefly to you, and I'm Arne Kies, the guy to the right. One of the more important features of the format we are presenting in today is that you have the ability to ask questions during the presentation through the window that you can expand by clicking the orange arrow pointing to the right on your screen. And then you type in your question, and we have staff here to read your questions and feed them on to the presenters, or if it's strictly technical questions for the system, then the moderator here will reply either directly through the Q&A window or via email after the presentation. But please do not hesitate at any time during the presentation to type in your questions. We will collect the questions from the presentation at the end, and Sina and Alexander will give the best shot at your questions. So it's a free lunch. Type in your questions in the question panel. Some people in the audience may not know very much about anybody, so this is the elevator pitch, the 1 minute pitch about the Anybody modeling system, which is the software that has been used to create the model that we will hear about today. It is a development package, if you like, for developing musculoskeletal models. And when you open the system and look inside, you will see there is a set of models, and those models are primarily related to humans. And this is, of course, the main road of use for most users, although some users prefer to create their own models, as we will see today. But most users would then use one of the template models in the repository and create a variety of different adjusted models from this one. And the software is a fully fledged development and analysis tool for musculoskeletal analysis, and there are virtually endless possibilities of creating models and running models that have all kinds of different inputs and also different types of sophistication, different ranges of sophistication. Most users are interested in running models that are driven by kinematic data from experiments in mocap. Some people use a feature that was added quite recently to predict ground reaction force, which will make experimentation much simpler. There's a lot of people that follow the road of using image data to create patient-specific models, and we'll see a very unusual example about that today. But this is used by many users in orthopedics. And then there's also a range of users, increasing range of users that look at man-machine interactions. That could be people in a workplace environment, or it could be people wearing exoskeletons or prostheses and those kind of things. There are a number of resources available for people who would like to study more about anybody. And the simple way to do it is to send us an email and tell us what you have in terms of ideas, and then we'll set up a meeting, or we'll reply by email and brainstorm with you on your idea. But you can also do a self-study, and for many people there's a huge source of inspiration in the publication list. There are some 400 or 500 papers out there written by people who have used anybody to create all sorts of models in a very broad range of fields. We also have a YouTube channel. This webinar will be available in a couple of days in the YouTube channel. There are many previous previous webcasts there, and also instructional videos. And we also have a comprehensive set of tutorials, so if you want to try it out, step by step, going through the process of creating and running a model, you can view how to do this in the tutorials. I want to draw your attention to the publication list one more time, because we actually have at least the 2 papers that we are aware of by the presenters of today. They're in the publication list. You can go there and click the link to find the download page. In terms of usage areas, most fall in one of these categories. Either it's a sort of ergonomic analysis. In this case, you could also think of basic understanding, quantification of some sort of situation. And many people do that with humans in some sort of environment. And this quickly, for many people, leads to the question of, can we modify or improve the environment? And this then turns into product design optimization. Lots of people are interested in the motion in kinematics itself as sort of a corollary to the kinetic analysis. And then more special cases are those that involve links to other types of software or hardware, in the case of load cases for finite element analysis, or linking to surgical planning systems. But I encourage you to go to the publication list and browse through it. That will give you a lot of inspiration if you have ideas for things you might want to do. As said, the flow of logic in anybody is quite often going from left to right in this screen here. So some people measure some sort of thing in an experiment. This could be bite forces for a dragonfly. Then they rely on a body model, either from us or they create it from scratch, like the authors of the model today have done. Then they run it through the system, and then they get basic insight into the internal properties of the mechanics of the body, such as joint forces and muscle forces, down to individual muscle forces or individual branches of muscles, if you choose that level of resolution in your model. And then for many people, but not those that we will enjoy today, people then turn it into a design loop, and they try to modify the environment and try to achieve some sort of optimization or minimization for the environment. And with this, I've completed my introduction, so I'm happy to lend the presenter role to our presenters today. They are Sina David. She is a PhD student, not about dragonflies, I should say. She is at the German Sports University in Cologne, and co-presenter is Alexander Blanke, who is a research fellow at University of Hull in the UK.
Thank you very much to everybody, and good morning. Thank you for attending this class. And yeah, as you already heard, it's all about musculoskeletal modeling of dragonflies today, which is quite an unusual topic, and therefore we decided to present you initially a little bit of the rationale for starting such an analysis and the reasons for doing this kind of study. So when we take a look at insects in a more general way, we see that there are many different insect head types, and these different insect head types, of course, also have different mouth parts. like for example in the upper row, biting, chewing mouth parts, and in the lower row, piercing, sucking mouth parts. And all these different mouth part classes are moved by different muscle sets. And a part of the reason why we do the musculoskeletal modeling approach is to get a better grip on the reasons why so many different mouth part classes evolved within insects, and which role the muscle sets underlying the mouth part movement play in this scenario. And taking a very brief look at the evolution of insects, we see that when we color the different mouth part classes, we see that, for example, in red color here on this tree of insects, we see the biting, chewing mouth parts. Then we have in yellow color we have piercing, sucking mouth parts. Then in blue color we have intermediate mouth parts. And what we see from this overview is that we have many different insect mouth part classes. And what we also see is that, for example, biting, chewing mouth parts seem to have evolved several times independently during insect evolution. And this is very unusual, and with our modeling approaches, we want to get a better understanding how this multiple evolution of similar mouth part classes could have happened. Okay, and in this framework, dragonflies are very interesting and important because, as you see from this slide, dragonflies are really at the base of the insect tree. So dragonflies are very, we could say, early evolved insects, which are in fact very old. And due to this special position, they are of course very interesting to understand the basics of the mouth part evolution. So when we take a brief look at the studies already out there, which handle mouth part kinematics in insects, we see that these studies are mainly handling insect mouth part kinematics in 2 dimensions. It's very difficult to go into the 3rd dimension, and that's why most of the studies are kind of limited in their scope and in their methodological approach. But this changed a lot in recent years due to the and here it's another slide where you see the actual difficulties we have with insects. So when you compare an insect head, for example, to a baby Tasmanian devil, which is already very small, you see that our main difficulty is the size of the insects. So we have to apply methods which give us data from insects with a very high resolution, and this is the reason why we can assess the morphology of insects in a 3-dimensional way in recent years, because we have this microcomputer tomography, abbreviated as micro-CT, and this technique helps to generate very detailed virtual anatomies of insects. We depicted here a few of the facilities where you can do such very high resolution studies with resolutions of a few micrometers. This is the so-called DAISY in Hamburg, the PSI in Switzerland, but these facilities are virtually spread over the whole world. You have an important facility called Spring 8 in Japan, and all these facilities have different characteristics which can help you in different ways and in different resolutions. Okay, so taking a brief look how this micro-CT data looks like, we have here a stack of images, and this is actually the thorax of a dragonfly. You see here in the upper part of the slide, you see the dragonfly, and this is from an image stack from the anterior to the posterior part of this part of the dragonfly. And what you can see is that you have a very detailed representation of the inner anatomy with all the muscles you see here. These big muscles are the flight muscles. This is the outer shell thorax. And this is just to show you that the micro-CT data is actually very, very detailed. And this helps us a lot and helps us to generate these nice looking three-dimensional models. This is obviously a dragonfly head, as you all can see. And you see that the eyes are here colored in blue, and you see the orange muscles and the mouth parts, which are depicted here in the open state. So this is a representation of this anterior part of the dragonfly. And with these very detailed three-dimensional models, we have already a part of the data we need to do the musculoskeletal modeling. So the main issue is to obtain a very detailed geometry of the model, and together with force measurements, we can then start the musculoskeletal modeling. And this means that I will now hand over to Zina David, who will explain the modeling part of the whole study. So yeah, please, Zina.
So hello everyone. So the aim was to that we wanted to create a model that consists of 3 rigid segments, which you can see here. So one part is the head segment, the capsule here, and then we have 2 of these mandibles, so like the teeth of the dragonfly. In this picture, there's only 1 represented because we don't need more for the model. Then we have another rigid segment, which is the tendon part here, and yeah, usually tendons are not rigid, but on the micro-CT scans we could see that the tendon is already really sclerotized, and therefore we handled it like a rigid segment. And then we have 5 different muscles. So there's one big muscle here. You could see this in orange on the 3D video. And then we have 3 little muscles here, and then there is 1 here. We connected the mandible to the head capsule with 2 spherical joints here. You can see here, but I will go into this more into detail in the next slide. So to show you how we embedded the micro-CT scans into the model. So this is one of the images of the micro-CT scan. So we imported it into a software called Blender. And with this software, you're able to get really accurate positions of different landmarks and of the surface of this scan. And then we took the coordinates of several landmarks and imported them into Anybody. And you can see here that we took the muscle insertions here, and they are quite in the same position than you can see here in the micro-CT scan. Then we took the tendon, which is here. It's a little bit simplified, but it really gives us identically the shape of the original data set. And then we also imported the endoskeleton, which is the mandibles and the head capsule. So here's the model as it looks like in Anybody. So of course you don't need the surfaces to make the model work, but it helps to just adjust the positions to see if you imported everything right. And it also helps to adjust the coordinate systems, for example, of those 2 hinge joints here. So at the beginning it were spherical joints, but 2 spherical joints in a line work like a revolute joint. And so this is the model setup. And the next step was that we needed to import some force data of the dragonflies. And as Alexander already mentioned, those are really small insects. And that's why we used these sensors here. They're kind of custom-made PISLA, piezoelectric force sensors. And we just fixed the dragonfly into kind of this soft caliper here, so the dragonfly is not hurt or something. And then we started the measurement. I just want to give you a brief example of it. So this is how we measured the forces. And yeah, then we took this data and brought it into Anybody. And as there is not really a real force plate embedded in the model. We use the force to be a reaction force that just is attached to the peak of the mandible here and works like a reaction force against the mandible. The next step we needed to adjust is the muscle model, and as you all might know, there are 3 different muscle models in the Anybody Muscles modeling system. So there's a really simple model. It is, of course, that you only need the initial force to set up the muscles, but of course it ignores cross-bridge binding, which is not a really physiological behavior. But the other 2 models which are available need lots of input data, and as you can imagine, it's not that easy to get those detailed information out of these small animals. So we decided to use the simple muscle model and to set up our model. But even in our approach here, we did not know the initial muscle force. So what we did was we used another approach. We took the force of the strongest bite, and then we started to define the muscle model with a really high initial force, and then the muscle activation was at about 0%, the muscle activation, and then we lowered the initial force until the muscle activation reached 80%, and we thought this was a really realistic approach, since those animals can do this biting movement for many minutes, and so we thought, okay, 80% is kind of a they are in a position to fight against an attack, so that's what they're doing in our experiment here, but they can do it for a long time. And with these initial force, we then ran the model and did some different experiments. So we wanted to know which role does each muscle play in the muscle complex. So is this big muscle, you can see over here, how much percent of the total force is generated by these muscles, and we did some experiments with just excluding the smaller parts here and seeing, okay, what's happening there. So this was the evolutionary part of the study. And we could also test which role play different muscle fibers within the big muscle, which was also an interesting question in both of the studies. But for example, in the second study, we also tested different species of dragonflies against each other to see what evolution did to the muscle system and which changes this brought to the biting forces. So I hope you really enjoyed the model, and I want to give back to Alexander, who just gives us a brief conclusion.
So hello again. Yeah. So apart from learning for the first time more about dragonfly head muscles, this data we get from the musculoskeletal modeling gives us now the opportunity to do other stuff, which is mainly to use the forces we get, for example, the joint reaction forces and the muscle forces, as the input forces for finite element simulation studies, where we will simulate the forces as boundary conditions, and then we can see by simulating these forces how the head is loaded during biting action, and this will give us information about the importance of certain structures within the insect head capsule, not only from an evolutionary point of view, but also from a construction point of view, which brings me to the next topic. So apart from evolution, we want to use the data to optimize technical structures by taking the structures we see in insects as a starting point to optimize, for example, material usage in technical structures like robots, or to increase the loading capacities in technical structures. So, for example, if you compare that a typical insect leg is able to lift 300% of its own weight. This is rather a really good value when you compare this to robots, which are currently able to lift maximal 1/4 of their own weight. So with this, we would like to end the presentation, and yeah, we hope you got some input maybe for your own research, and we are open for any questions you might have. So thanks again, and yeah, we're open for questions.
There's a question here. Sina and Alexander, are you ready?
Yep. Yeah, we're ready.
The question is, thank you for the very interesting webcast. I was wondering how easy it was for you to identify the muscle path on the micro CT. Do you know if there are any technology available to obtain MRI at the same length scale?
Yeah, okay, so yeah, MRI is actually a very difficult case because currently the resolution in MRI is not high enough to obtain detailed scans of in the size class of insects. There's lots of I know that there's lots of development going on in the MRI branch to increase the resolution, but this means that the used energies have to be increased a lot. So I would say that currently it's not possible to achieve sub-micrometer resolution with MRI. I think we have to wait a few more years until the physicists accomplish this.
Next question. Why are insects so much relatively stronger than robots? You showed those comparisons on the final slide.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting question. I think we only know a part of the answer of this question. So one reason is certainly that the materials insects are built of are much more advanced than the materials we currently use, for example, in robotics. You have to imagine that the insect cuticle is a so-called anisotropic viscoelastic material, which varies in material properties according to water content. So you have to imagine that insect cuticle is much more like a carbon fiber, but even more advanced than the carbon fibers we are currently using. So this is one reason for the outstanding capabilities of insects, or the outstanding lifting capabilities. And another reason is that from an evolutionary point of view, insects evolved 400 million years ago. So you have to imagine that they had 400 million years of a kind of natural engineering to optimize each structure perfectly to the task it has to accomplish. And this leads to very, very optimized structures with such outstanding capabilities. So we can really learn a lot from the construction principles of insects.
Another question here for you guys. It starts by nice presentation. My question is, did you measure pressure or force? If you measured pressure, how might the shear force component influence the stress in the insect head? I think this relates to the finite element analysis.
Yeah. So we measured force. So this small sensor you saw is a one-dimensional force sensor, so yeah, we do not have the problem of shear forces. So I think this relates to the question, because so if you really have force and no shear forces or no pressure problems, then you can really easily embed it to the MDA or to the finite element analysis.
Okay, we have one more question here. It is a question about the resolution on the muscle definition. So you had this rainbow-colored muscle. What kind of thinking did you have in terms of the number of different branches or parts of this muscle, and how do you think this would influence the results?
Yeah, so I will try to answer this question. So the rationale for separating the muscle into different groups was first to get more like a spatial resolution within the muscle. So the different subgroups within the muscle are of course artificial, but nevertheless it gives us a better idea which parts of the muscle in the real insect are activated at which point in time and which role they play during the biting process. And this then allows us to better compare muscles between different insect species to learn about common mechanical patterns between these different insects, and to learn about the differences in the muscle usage in the different insects. So the grouping is clearly artificial, but it helps us to learn about the spatial activity of the muscle.
Okay. With this, we do not have any more questions. I would like to thank the presenters. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation, and thank you very much to the audience for joining us for this event. The webcast is closed. We will close the online event in a few seconds. Thank you very much.